Psychic Storytime. For reference, I am a medium. This story time is about the visitation I had with my grandma's spirit that was later confirmed by a medium in front of my husband and my family. This was my first experience that made me finally accept that I was a medium. By the way, grandmas are apparently MVPs of the spirit realm. I need to hear your psychic or paranormal experience with your grandma's spirit. Feel free to stitch this or comment below, because I was shook at how many friends out there commented about their grandma saving the day in the spirit realm in one of my previous videos comment sections. So my grandma passed away when I was almost 16 years old. At the time, my head was so deep in the sand when it came to my psychic abilities. I did everything I could to avoid them. When I was like 18 or 19, I kind of started opening back up to them, and one day I was in the car. I could feel her presence very intensely, and I could smell her perfume and her, because she did that, and I swear I could even see her very clearly in my mind. So I started talking to her, and I could hear her in my mind very, very clearly. I started talking to her every day from that point on. Fast forward to when I was like 27, 28, going through a really hard time with my family. I was kind of contemplating moving away from my hometown and doing the van life thing with my husband, which we eventually did. I was kind of leaning on my grandma a lot at that point, which sounds crazy because, she's on the other side, but whatever, it was true. Things are really getting bad, and I just kind of told her, like, look, I need a hug. I need to know that you're real and that I'm talking to you, and I would really like to know what your sign is to me. I had always heard of other people sharing what their loved one's signs to them are from the other side, like seeing a feather or a cardinal fly by. About a week goes by. One morning, my husband, my then boyfriend at the time, forgot to close the blinds after he went to work, and I was like, ugh, I gotta go back to sleep because I had worked late at the restaurant the night before. I turn around to go back to bed, and there she was sitting on the bed. Not like a hologram or glowing or anything, no see-through anything. It was her, like in the flesh. And she looked just like she did when I was a little girl. She was wearing this like red long sleeve satin blouse, and her hair was done just like she had gotten it set at the hairdresser's. And I just immediately started bawling. I ran over to her and I laid my head in her lap, and she rubbed my head, and I was just saying, I can't believe that you're really here. I thought I was never going to see you again. I didn't, this is crazy. I mean, I was in shock. I finally sat up, and she gave me a hug for a long time. I could smell her perfume, and like I said, I could smell her, Anyways, she held me while I cried for quite a while and told me everything was okay. It was extremely healing and comforting to be in her presence. Like, there's no kind of unconditional love like that of a parent or a grandparent. And like I said, it had been like a really rough month, year, let's be honest, lifetime. Anyways, I calmed down and looked at her, and she said how proud she was of me and told me I was right where I needed to be, on the right path, even though I felt like I wasn't. I was worried way too much about the future and everything in general. She said I was going to marry my boyfriend, and that I was going to become a mother in a couple of years, and she would be there. And that I'd leave and she'd come with us on our travels to keep me safe and watch over me. She said that she loved talking to me every day and said I could ask her any question I wanted because time didn't exist right then in that moment. And I said, well, I have so many questions, I don't even know how to ask them all. And she said, I can ask them anytime I wanted. And the first thing that came to mind was her reply, and anything after that, I was just overthinking it. So I did wind up asking her questions about my family, which she answered. We talked about other stuff, and honestly, a lot of it I can't even remember. I wish I would have written it all down. At the end of our conversation, though, before we left, she said, I want you to know what my sign to you is. It's going to be coins or change, and she showed me a penny. I told her, I obviously did not want to go at all. She said that I would feel her with me for the rest of that day. As soon as we said goodbye, my eyes opened, the blinds were closed, and I had dried tears all over my face, and my face was so swollen from crying. I immediately called my other grandma, Nanny, that's what I call her, because she is like literally my best friend and one of the only people I could really talk to about this kind of stuff at the time. And I told her everything, and then she shared her story of her own visitation she had once, which should be its own story time one day. I wound up telling my husband about it and my aunt and a few other people, and this is where it all gets confirmed. A few years later, my grandma, Nanny, had a medium, shout out Tiffany, come to her house and do a family reading for a bunch of us. When she got to me, she said I had a grandma stepping forward, and she was telling Tiffany that I talked to my grandma every day. Tiffany asked, was your grandma a teacher? And that was our last name, teacher. She also said a lot of other things that she could have never known. At the end, she said her sign to you are coins, pennies, and dimes. So my jaw dropped, and just about everybody else in the room's jaw dropped, because aside from the medium, everybody knew about that dream that I had. So that's my story. I would absolutely love to hear your story in the comments or stitched. I really enjoy reading them, and I hope I can share some of them someday. Thank you so much for listening. If you made it this far, like, comment, and follow along if you'd like to hear more psychic insights, intuition tips and tricks, and psychic story times. Talk to you soon. Bye.